Hey everyone, it's Nick from Part-Time Pilot, your host of the Audio Ground School podcast. Welcome. And before we get started, I just want to mention that this Audio Ground School podcast is completely free. And every single week, we are releasing a new private pilot online ground school audio lesson and a new IFR online ground school audio lesson. But if you don't want to wait every single week for that new lesson, you want every single lesson included in our private pilot or IFR online ground schools, you want the complete ground school in audio, you can do that one of two ways. You can purchase it separately, just all the audio lessons at parttimepilot.com, or every single member of our online ground school, whether it's private pilot or IFR, also gets access to every single audio lesson. They get access to the audio lessons on the lessons themselves. So at the top of the lesson is the audio lesson, so you can read through while you listen, see the visual aids, watch the videos, take the quizzes, etc. But members of our online ground schools also get access to our VIP podcast. So this allows them to have every single lesson on their device, whatever device, their iPad, their iPhone, their Samsung, whatever device you have, every single one on your favorite podcast app, completely ad-free. So none of them have ads or me rambling on like I am right now. It's just the lesson. And you can download those, listen to them wherever you go, even offline in the VIP podcast. There's also bonus episodes on things like check, read, prep, and other things like sleep, stress, things that also affect pilots. So you can either get that inside the online ground school, have them write on your lessons, and have the VIP podcast, or you can purchase that VIP podcast separately. Both those are going to be at parttimepilot.com. All right, so let's get started with today's episode. VFR, IFR, and Special VFR. Before taking off for any flight, every pilot must understand the airspaces that he or she will be traveling through while en route. Each airspace has specific rules concerning the aircraft equipment, pilot ratings, ATC compliance, and minimum weather requirements. There may be more than one airport within an airspace, but there will be one airport designated as the primary airport for that airspace. Any other airport other than the primary inside the airspace is considered a satellite airport for the airspace. Departing from either a primary or satellite airport requires the pilot to establish and maintain communications with the departing airport's tower. If the departing airport tower does not have a tower, then the primary airport's tower is to be contacted. Airspace system designations are used throughout the United States in order to standardize airspace classifications with other countries. VFR, or Visual Flight Rules, are a set of regulations under which a pilot operates an aircraft in weather conditions generally perceived to be clear enough that the pilot can see where they are going. IFR, or Instrument Flight Rules, is the other set of regulations established by the FAA to govern flight under conditions in which the flight by outside visual reference, aka being able to see the ground and traffic, is not safe, and therefore a pilot should rely on their instruments for navigation. The only time a VFR pilot can fly in IFR conditions is if they get Special VFR clearance from the air traffic controller or ATC tower. However, VFR pilots cannot get Special VFR at night unless they have an IFR rating. So Special VFR at night is essentially considered IFR. Special VFR may only be issued by the governing ATC, and when given the clearance for Special VFR in the day, the minimum weather condition is 1 statute mile flight visibility as well as remaining clear of clouds. An SVFR clearance is only good for flying within the airspace of the governing ATC that issued the Special VFR. Once outside of this airspace, the VFR rules change to those for that particular airspace. Some airports will specifically not allow any SVFR or Special VFR clearances, and they will list this near the airport information box on a sectional chart, like in the figure we see here in the online ground school where we circled in red the no SVFR, which tells you no Special VFR. Helicopters can request Special VFR during the day and during the night, even when the visibility is less than 1 mile. Therefore, the no SVFR below is only for fixed wing aircraft, so the one we talk about here in the figure. You might also see in the chart legend where it says no FVFR, it says fixed wing Special VFR flight is prohibited. That's the difference between fixed wing and helicopter. There are other designations such as Marginal Visual Flight Rules, or MVFR, or Low Instrument Flight Rules, which is LIFR, which are slight variants of VFR and IFR. MVFR, or again, Marginal Visual Flight Rules, needs to be flown in with caution if you are a VFR pilot. MVFR can be very dangerous for someone who is used to flying clear VFR skies. LIFR, or low instrument flight rules, tells even the most experienced of IFR pilots that they may have a difficult time landing because the visibility is basically non-existent all the way down to the surface. So it's just going to be down on the approach. It's just going to be clouds, 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 and clouds all the way to the surface. And when you get these low IFR conditions, that's like when you have a bunch of fog in an airport and the airport starts canceling flights because that fog is just all the way down to the ground. Here are the conditions required to call conditions VFR, MVFR, IFR, and LIFR. So for VFR weather is considered ceilings greater than 3,000 feet AGL and visibility greater than 5 statute miles. MVFR weather is considered ceilings from 1,000 to 3,000 feet AGL and or visibility 3 to 5 statute miles. Student pilots are not allowed to fly MVFR, but private pilots are. However, like I said before, private pilots should really consider if it's worth it to not fly in optimal VFR conditions when they're not practiced in MVFR or IFR conditions. It's probably not worth it. Then you have IFR. IFR weather is considered ceilings from 500 feet to less than 1,000 feet AGL and or visibility 1 mile to less than 3 miles. Now on all of these, except for the VFR, there's an and or. So if you have, for example, in IFR, it says ceilings from 500 feet to less than 1,000 feet AGL and or visibility 1 mile to less than 3 miles. So if you have a ceiling of 5,000 feet AGL, but your visibility is only 2 statute miles, that's an and or. One of those conditions for IFR was met, so therefore it's IFR. Only one of them has to be met, either the ceiling or the visibility. Now, LIFR, the last one, low IFR, weather is considered ceilings less than 500 feet AGL and or, again, that and or visibility less than 1 mile. The definition of a ceiling used above, or what we just talked about, is lowest broken or overcast layer or vertical visibility into an obstruction. Now, you may be thinking these are not the weather minimums I remembered for VFR flight inside airspaces, and you are correct. The weather minimums listed above are an overarching set of weather designations that, if not flying in an airspace, would be accurate. Airspace weather minimums further confine the designations depending on the airspace you are flying in. For example, if you are flying in an airway, then you are flying under Class Echo or Class E airspace rules and would obey the VFR weather minimums for Class Echo airspace, which are different than the basic VFR weather minimums that we just talked about. Those are just what makes conditions VFR, IFR, LIFR, or MVFR. Each airspace also has its own VFR minimums, and we're going to talk about that in the next few lessons along with the other requirements of each type of airspace. In the following lessons, we'll go over each airspace and the associated rules relative to students and private pilots. We will cover controlled airspaces, Class Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, and uncontrolled, which is Class Golf. Hey everyone, Nick here. Real quick, I want to make a quick student pilot service announcement, or SPSA, for those of you who want to finish your pilot training journey and achieve your dream of becoming a pilot. Now, there's a belief that many student pilots hold that goes something like this. Once I get my pilot certificate and pass my check ride, I will finally be the pilot in command, or PIC. And that belief is wrong. And if you keep waiting to pass your check ride to feel and act like a PIC, you'll struggle a lot. You'll spend thousands of dollars with no progress to show for it. Your instructor will continuously decide to not progress you through lessons because they don't see you as a PIC. And ultimately, you'll have to give it all up. Unfortunately, we see this far too often. The truth is, this transformation into a pilot in command needs to happen during your training. Look, flying is 80% mental, if not more. A mentally prepared pilot stays ahead of the aircraft, makes better decisions, learns faster, can actually focus on the act of flying, and exudes PIC energy. Instructors and examiners won't pass or progress students who they don't feel are a PIC. And to get them to feel you're a PIC, you have to feel it inside of you first. That's why I created Part-Time Pilot and why it is designed the way it is. We aren't just gatekeeping information that you have to pay for in order to access. The information to become a pilot, the FAA has been giving that away for decades now. And there are unlimited free YouTube videos, AI now, and other resources like this podcast where you can learn everything you need to know 100% free. Yes, we are proud of the content we do have inside our Part-Time Pilot courses. Our written audio and video lessons stand toe-to-toe with any other ground school at helping you understand the content. But that's not why we made Part-Time Pilot. We made Part-Time Pilot to actually help transform everyday student pilots into the PIC they need to become as soon as possible in their training. This way, student pilots are actually progressing through flight lessons, aren't repeating costly flights or doing extra ground lessons at $50, $70, or even $100 an hour these days. And they're actually achieving their dream of becoming a pilot. We do this with a complete step-by-step system and process for our students, combined with daily expert support, mentorship, community, and top-of-the-line new age study tools and that content. Take our student Jason, for example, a middle school English teacher who hated math and didn't have an ounce of aviation knowledge before joining Part-Time Pilot. Jason went from a 9%, yes, a 9% on a practice test he took before starting the course, to scoring a 90% on his FA written exam and becoming a pilot just 6 months later. Or Caroline, whose CFI was so impressed at how much she knew before her very first flight lesson that allowed her to feel like a PIC much, much sooner than the average student and finish her private pilot in less hours and nearly $8,000 less than the national average spent. So even if you don't choose Part-Time Pilot, make sure you find a system, mentor, community, and instructor that has your back and can help you feel like the PIC you've dreamed of being before you get to your check ride. Because if you don't, you'll end up paying a lot more than you expected for flight training, and you and I know it's already expensive enough. To learn more about how we do all this, go to parttimepilot.com or click the link in your podcast episode description.